Hey there, guys. I'm Bobby,
I'm Steffi Steph.
and together we are Between Two Teeth.
Shout
Steffi
out.
Steph, what are we talking about today?
Today we're kind of unpacking some of the lessons learned in through our adventures in Warsaw, Poland on our Ukraine mission trip.
That's right. We've been talking a lot about this Ukraine mission trip. We actually just got back a short time ago. Go.
Yeah, so for me, one of the big impact items was how far-reaching the effect this had on not just people at home people at home and people in Poland and people in Ukraine. And it was phenomenal. I was at a coffee shop and we were wearing these shirts, and the barista was asking. She was like, "Oh my gosh, are you going to Ukraine?" And I go, "Well, we're going to go on a Ukraine mission trip." And she goes, "You'll never guess where I'm from." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" So it turns out she's from Ukraine, and she's in Garland, Texas, right
Yeah.
now, trying to escape the war.
It's amazing the number of people who've come up and have said they've got Ukrainian descent. You know, I've got Ukrainian descent. Many other people.
Do you really have Ukrainian descent?
Yeah, I do. No, I do.
Was it like 1/100th?
No, it was like, well, it was like 50%.
Is this a reaching comment?
No, it's not reaching at all. And,
Is there like some 23andMe documentation?
I loved being able to participate like this. And we obviously post a lot of things. Sorry for people that get upset about that.
Another cool thing is when you go on mission trips, and several of you, if you listening, probably have. And the coolest thing is the connections you make with your fellow compadres when you are going on mission trips.
Yeah.
And our fellow mates, Kate Davidowski from the American Dental Association.
Shout out to Kate.
Dr. Hannah Alberti, also working at the American Dental Association.
Shout out to Hannah.
And then Dr. Craig Armstrong, our District 15 trustee for the American Dental Association. And man, I did not know our team very well. Your kiddo.
I was just going to say you're leaving out David.
Also,
David would be 100% okay with being left.
He really would be okay with that. David is a pre-dental student, and I did not know these people very well.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but before we went on this trip,
I knew my kid pretty well.
And after you get back from a mission trip, you actually you get relationships on a deeper level, and that's the coolest part of this thing.
You're in the adventure together. You never really know someone till you live with them for a touch of time, and that's also what it's like on that.
I'm just going to start like, what do people pack? To me, that's a crazy litmus test for what kind of person you are.
You're not wrong. You literally weighed everything before you put it in your
bag. And so
10 pounds?
I'm a light packer.
Yeah.
But what I thought was so impressive.
You're a small person.
What I thought was so impressive. So
I've got a bigger surface area.
Kate Davidowski shows up, and she's got this oversized backpack on.
Don't be calling out. Oh, okay. I know where you're going.
I was
going to be like, don't call her out for like bringing all this stuff.
Bob's primary mission is to cut me off in conversation.
No, it is. That's what banter is called. Banter.
So Kate shows up with this big backpack on, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And she goes, I love working with children on these trips. And one of her goals was to bring toys and
her
goodies.
Parents bought like 800 toys.
Yeah. And her poor Kate had to carry all this stuff.
That was heavy.
And it was super heavy. But what it taught me about Kate is she doesn't care about not suffering, but she doesn't care about being a little uncomfortable if it means helping out people. And not only people she doesn't even know.
Yeah.
That told me a lot about Kate Davidowski there.
And some of the items they brought were these rings that light up. And one of my fond memories, a day that was kind of a tough struggle train day. And Craig Armstrong shows up, and he's got these light up rings, and we had them on our fingers so we could give them to kids as we see the kids. And he's got these light up things, and I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. And he and I are having this, kind of intense discussion about structure of the ADA or something. He's got these rings on that are lighting up and flashing. I'm like, it's hard to.
It was really, the other thing about Kate is she tends to capture moments in a very abstract way. And I know the rings you're talking about because Kate was able to capture Craig Armstrong with these rings on in such a
Oh,
chill manner. And
yes.
a lot of times in photos, we try to line everybody up and have a perfect photo that's very photoshopped in order
Yes.
to seem like everybody just stood that way the entire day.
Yeah.
And Kate Davidowski does a great job of finding people in their element and in their moments. And so if you follow her on social media, you can see some of those photos in real
She
time.
is fantastic. Kate is a non-dentist who went on a dental mission and had an impact that was just awesome.
You know,
So many other people
I,
on. Oh, you go.
the thing that I learned on this mission trip was a greater appreciation for family. And I
Mm.
learned that through Hannah, Dr. Hannah Alberti. Hannah is a dentist. She has managed these big group practices, and she has segued a lot of her work into kind of one of the uh, sectors of the American Dental
She's a senior
Association.
director with the American Dental
Yeah,
Association.
and through her time in Poland, not only was Dr. Alberti just phenomenal, her gentleness and her nature, and
Yeah.
you can't really we sedate people a lot, so we don't have to talk to them as much. But Dr. Alberti got right in there, and without sedation, you actually need to be really nice and
Yes.
very kind and
And
gentle.
especially when you're doing it through translators, and
And
she has
and
such a
Hannah
caring
has
spirit
a
about her.
way about her
Yes.
with patients that just emanated.
And she has Czech descent through
And
her family.
and it was super cool seeing her show up with her family.
Yes, her family took the night
And
bus to come see
I
her.
I often say that people have a special smile for when they're with their
You
families.
do say that.
And I saw Hannah's today, or when we were
It
in
felt like
Poland,
today.
it felt like
Yeah.
today. I saw Hannah Alberti's when she was with her family. And how cool was that to see someone in their space with their people, with their
It
humans.
was awesome.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I
awesome.
love that. And
Yeah.
then of course, Craig Armstrong, solid as a rock. A lot of times on these mission trips, you can have a range of emotions and personalities, and it was so cool to me because I didn't know Craig too well
Mhm.
before I went, and it was so cool to me to see someone that just was our rock for the group. He
Yeah.
was our anchor, and I wasn't the only one that described him like that. We had several of our group describe him just like that independently.
What I loved about Craig, one, he was a workhorse and like just worked hard,
Craig
hard,
got in
hard, hard,
there.
hard.
Yes, he did.
But number two, he's kind of a big deal leader with the American Dental Association. And he
Yes.
came in and, he kind of surveyed the land and said, these people, and by these people, you got this, and to let you lead our group
The
and get things set up.
the
And
cool thing about Craig Armstrong is that leaders listen. They need to
mm,
be able to listen. I've met a lot of leaders that do not listen very well. They make you think they're listening,
yeah.
but they're not listening very well. And the coolest thing about Craig that just really radiated for me on this trip is he is someone that can come into a group, into a setting that is uncomfortable. Not only can he lead, but he can listen.
Mm,
And Craig was able to listen to the needs of each of our group members, and he was able to get people in the right places that made this entire trip just seamless.
I agree.
And I love that about Craig
And
Armstrong.
he's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, on the flip side, Craig is
We
hilarious.
like to have fun.
And
My son says that Craig was actually the most fun person on the trip.
I love hearing people's stories, and
He's got a lot of
we
stories.
had the benefit of spending a week with him, and I know not everyone can spend a week with Craig Armstrong, but the cool thing is that Craig is a well-rounded individual. He has a lot of fun. He's hilarious when you get him talking,
He's
and
hilarious.
yeah, he can definitely just carry a group,
Yeah,
and it is so cool to see someone like that. And also, he's not afraid to try something new.
he's not.
He is willing to step up to a challenge or a new way of thinking.
Mhm.
It was really cool seeing all of us ride these
I
scooters,
hated that. That was like the first day there. Oh, let's
to
get on
Old
those little
Town
line bike scooter
in Poland.
things on cobblestone
So that yeah, you
Roads
guys led us into
interstate.
that, by the way. That was not us.
Well, it
We were
wasn't me.
following that one.
I'm like, here's the deal. We're all going to fall and break our wrists before we do anything.
Yeah. I
I digress.
Yeah, but the cool thing is that nothing about that was easy, and
Mm,
Craig showed very nuanced niche leadership qualities that are just not present in everybody.
yeah,
And he without a doubt was our rock throughout this whole thing.
I agree. What's next?
The other thing on this trip that I learned a great appreciation for was people. And that's kind of funny because you think that, well, of course you guys are between two teeth, you love people. But we do love people. Well, one of us does.
Oh, wow.
But the cool thing is, and Craig actually said
You're terrible.
Craig actually said this to me when we were walking back from dinner one night. Is he was talking about because Craig is well traveled and I want to be, and he said that you can't be scared. You can't
Mm,
be scared going to new places and trying new, on having new experiences.
yeah.
And there's a difference between being scared and being, just kind of a little bit too risky.
Right.
But Craig's message was, most people are good.
Mhm.
And you need to come into these situations with that in mind. It doesn't mean they're perfect, and it doesn't mean they don't make mistakes, but see the good in people
We
first.
saw a lot of good in the world
And we
at a
did.
time where it was a war, and these are people that get displaced from their country, their home. That had a huge impact on my son. And he said, we've done other mission trips and we go to impoverished nations, and he said this was different. He said I could see myself in the people that we treated. Hearing where someone's from. I'm from Odessa, and you treat them, and you get them out of pain, and they give you a big hug. It's just there's nothing like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I also got to interact, well, we all got to interact with people who are from different regions of Ukraine that served as
Yeah,
our translators in the shelters that we worked in. And it gave me an opportunity to interact on a whole new
yeah.
level and kind of be a role model that I haven't been able to really be for people.
It was interesting. They saw you, and they were amazed by
I've never
you.
I've never had a flex in front of, like, literally flex in front of so many 70 and 80-year-old women to convince them that I'm strong enough to take out a tooth.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
But I I think what I was referencing was the fact that you had a lot of females that were about your age or a little bit older than you and younger that looked at you and went, I like what she's doing. They're like, this is some
Shout out
American hockey player, motorcycle rider, doctor,
one
and adventurer.
one person I
And
had a
that was good for them to see.
that was very good for them to see. One person that really touched on my heartstrings was Lana. She kind of coordinated everything through
Yeah.
the International Medical Relief Program. Lana is a special human. She can't go back to her country right now because of political unrest,
Yeah.
and she was involved in a certain way. And her at the end of this particular mission trip, we all went around the room and kind of talked about what we had learned. And Lana was such a cool experience and a cool relationship for me because she saw some of my light and some of what I try to communicate with others, sometimes very poorly.
Mm,
But she was picking up what I was putting down,
yeah.
and it was cool for me to see someone as accomplished as Lana recognize that in someone like me who is kind of early in my journey.
So, what would you say? I hear you on that. What would you say to someone that says, I could never do something like this?
I would
One,
s-
because I'm not a dentist, or I'm a dentist. I can't take time away. I
my
can't do this.
my first question back, or I would answer the question with a question, would
You do that
be,
a lot.
you do as well.
Oh, very good.
My question would be, well, why not? And if they
Mm,
said they don't have any time, I said, well, how much time do you have? And if they said they really don't have time to get outside their practice, I would say there are patients. And I'm from Dallas, so I would say there are patients in Dallas. I'm seeing one this week. There's a local shelter that's going to be sending a patient over to our office for pro bono work. There's also, if they say, well, I've got a weekend. Oh, great. In our state, I'm in Texas. There's Texas Mission of Mercy. You
Yeah.
can go to a state run local mission trip. And if they said, look, I only have a week, great. These international mission
Yeah.
trips only last about a week. You
I
can definitely come with us next time.
I actually got a fair amount of grief from a colleague for serving internationally. They said there is so much needed here locally, and I'm glad you addressed that point that you can do things in your office locally.
And
You
not
can,
only can and all you do as well. You do all
yeah.
the things I just
Oh,
mentioned
thanks,
as well. And
thanks.
so it it's
It,
nice to choose your charity.
it is, and it gives you a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we were able to do what we did to help Ukrainian citizens, that was a phenomenal
It,
experience, and it was a different experience versus serving. We had served 2 weeks before that with Dr. Craig
Yeah, we
Armstrong
just got back from Bonham, Texas, and
in
I,
Bonham,
I treated
Texas.
I treated several homeless people from Bonham, Texas, and I felt really good about that.
Yeah,
And to one more point on that is on your story there. I think I think sometimes when we do these international mission trips, it's kind of a some people can see it as a one-stop shop. And man, this is the cool thing about organized dentistry is everybody has a role to play. And some
mm,
people only have time to do service in their backyard. It is
yeah,
no more or less important than international work.
yep.
I would say having a patient come into your office and you do pro bono work for them is just as important as doing an international mission trip.
And what I would say, the experience that I was able to make available to my son, who's pre-dental, trying to figure out, is dentistry really the right thing for me? And he looked at this and he saw dentistry as a way, a conduit to do something like this.
Mhm.
And he had a chance to talk to Ukrainians and people from Belarus that are his age and have discussions with these people. They actually shared a fondness for one really obscure heavy metal band that was crazy, that he had seen them in California, they had seen them in Ukraine. But just that human connection. We are all about connect, discover, and inspire. That is our why. That's our why for this. And as we look at something like this and say, does that help us to do that? And I think it does. Where's
Absolutely.
our next adventure going to be?
Man, I don't know. Maybe we have to keep you guys waiting a little bit. There's
Oh,
there's a there's a
suspense.
couple things that we have kind
We've
of
got a couple things on the
going
brain.
on, and
We do have
we're
to
just
work a little
we
bit.
need to work a little bit. Those are the questions we get asked most is do you guys ever work? And we were like,
We do.
yes, but
Yes.
selectively.
Yes.
And one of the things that kind of leads me into kind of maybe the last point on this little wrap up video is that I part of what this is about, part of what Between Two Teeth is about is to connect, discover, and inspire others. But we also inspire ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that when we take these trips, we have a more of a European approach to life and work. I don't think there is ever balance, but what you can do is make choices. And I think in America, we tend to live to work mentality
Yeah.
where nothing is ever enough. But the more times we kind of go over to Europe and we see how other people in the world go about life, I think it's such a great education. And if you get the chance to do it, and I know several of you listening already have, you know exactly what I mean. There's this working to live. And I think that Between Two Teeth, if we could deliver a message as far as why Poland and why didn't you just keep working here, it's because we are trying to embody this message of work to live. We work, we get what we need. We're not
Mm-hmm.
trying to live excessively, and we really just want to take everything that life has to offer and use it and live through that, working to live.
Make life an adventure. Some of that is going to mean you're uncomfortable. I actually think it's critically important to be uncomfortable. We had some long flights and adjusting to time zones on both sides of the pond that
Yeah,
was not real easy. But the magic that happened, I loved the leadership that you provided over there as far as just how we were going to go about doing what we were doing.
it was fun setting up the
I
clinics.
loved the way the group kind of came together, and we were all a little bit similar and a little bit different, and that was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, we just, major appreciation for Craig Armstrong, Dr. Hannah Alberti, Kate Davidowski, your boy David, and appreciation to you as
Well,
well,
and we
just
also
all coming all over there. It
oh,
it does
and to
take
you.
it does take time
And
and
we also had
resources
some
to do
people
this.
outside of our group as well.
Oh,
Alex and Tom, shout out to them,
yeah.
EMT and a finance guy who were
Alex was
critical,
incredible. I
incredible.
I I learned more from Alex in that week than I did in an entire economics class.
Yeah.
It was really actually very cool
It
for
was
him
actually
to be
cool,
there.
and I love Tom, who's an EMT. He had great chats with us. He had great chats with my son about Tom had done some gap years
Tom and
early
Tom
on.
impressed me, as an EMT, or when you show up to these things, you really don't know exactly how you are going to be utilized.
Yeah,
And Tom, the first day Tom was there, Tom was like, "Wait, what am I to be doing?"
yeah.
As far as being on a dental mission trip.
And
And
I
and
think he
so
looked
Tom
at us and
eh,
went,
and what Tom did was phenomenal because
yeah,
Tom is adaptable.
yep.
If that is anything that sums Tom up, is he is adaptable and he's positive.
He jumped into the group, and
He
how can I help?
assessed the lay of the land, said, "Okay,
Yeah, and
now I
quite
can go."
quite frankly, a good portion of that was on you. They were with your team the first 2 days,
Tom was working
and you
triage.
integrated people, and I saw how you had everyone working together when we all came together on that third day, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna follow your lead. So I guess our push for you is to figure out how you're gonna do what you want to do. Don't, put fear in its appropriate place, but don't let that stop you. You can make things happen. Get out there and serve in your own way. It doesn't have to be overseas. It can be
And
local. It can be
it doesn't have
statewide.
to be, yeah, it doesn't even have to be dentistry.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing, is just anything is really possible there. I would just say get out and get it.
Get out and get it. Well, on that, can you make that cool sound at the end? No, it was like, oh, that's the one. All right. Please hit the subscribe if you love what we're talking about. See ya.